Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Absolutely.
I'm
No.
super excited to have a conversation with you because we were at a networking event just, was it yesterday?
2 days
Two
ago.
days ago.
Yeah.
Time kind of just flies by for me. All the days mush together. But yeah, 2 days ago. And that was a fun event. That was not your first one. That was like the second or third one that you've been to. How many of those have you done?
Yeah. So that's the second open source Austin specifically. And first and foremost, dude, from my end to you, like I'm absolutely elated for this opportunity to be here, to talk about my narrative and the kind of most crucial things that led me to be the man I am today. And then first and foremost, dude, I want to get to know you further and just have a great time.
Yeah, I'm super excited. What really stood out to me at the Open Source Austin was how good of a public speaker you are, and you're able to articulate your ideas in a really concise manner, but also on your feet. You're able to think very fast and articulate in a way where you had to present the ideas of our group in one little exercise we were doing.
That's right.
And our group didn't even have a good idea because we only had 15 seconds and there were 7 of us, and it was hard to really come to a concise conclusion from that. But you articulated it so well, and I was really impressed by it.
Thank you.
And so through your career, you noted how really your entrepreneurship journey started coming when you were a little bit younger, I think, when you saw someone on the street who was very poor and you're like, I need to help people. At what point did you start working on your public speaking ability, and how do you see that fitting into your entrepreneurship journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's an awesome time that now that I'm older and I'm not in the classroom getting, absolutely castigated for being what I like to term as a grade A yapper, and I'm grateful for it, honestly. And I think for me, it's in due part of the intellectual curiosity and the aptitude for exploring ideas. And I think when we take a look into like religion, spirituality, just information at its core and most like fundamental essence, it's all oral tradition. And so, coming from a Christian background, especially an Orthodox background, recognizing the fact that like the mere fabric of our faith was preserved via oral tradition prior to the existence or the creation or formation of the Bible from a young age. Given, my father's a priest, I come from a religious family. And so it's like from a very young age, I was like, whoa, this is really important to be able to articulate ideas and to be able to communicate. And then as far as like, how that translates into my career, it just, to me, it depends on what role you play, right? So if you are CEO and co-founder of your company, you're a salesman, like first and foremost, like the idea that you're selling or the solution or the problem itself is something that you have to be able to proliferate into the marketplace of ideas. And I guess another tertiary thought is like, man, I'm super excited that we're in the age of information, because now the markets are converging on this idea of like information delivery and storage is the key components of successful businesses today. So from an individual running businesses and having to sell what I do, all the way to like thinking about the macroeconomic environment, it's like we're literally fighting over data centers and who can get to that. And that's what the underlying race to AI really means to me, is like what companies, countries, and organizations can facilitate the proliferation and storage of information and make that as quick as possible. So on every single, place. And then as far as like working on public speaking, I think something my parents did at a very young age that they did right was they spoke to us like adults, like straight up, like they'd be like, all right, son, come here. We're going to talk about the family's finances. Or, I grew up around priests, deacons, and going church to church with my father. So it was always like this is my son, meet my son. And it's like, oh, wow, I'm talking to a bishop of like some huge diocese. And so that really made me feel comfortable, truth be told. And oddly enough, I found myself enjoying the company of adults more than kids my age, because I like talking about really cool stuff. And that's why I'm really excited to be here, dude.
So when you were in school, were you ever in debate clubs or anything like that?
Of course, yes. I did varsity debate in high school, and I was somebody that did if this rings something to you, if it means anything to you, I did congressional and Lincoln Douglas styles of debate.
That means absolutely zero to me, unfortunately. Okay. But that sounds cool. I never was never in any debate club myself. I always respected the people that I knew that were in it, and they were always great at articulating stuff. My entire experience with debate comes from some AP classes I took in high school where we'd have to learn a particular topic and research it and then come to class and debate it in the classroom setting, but never got any formal debate experience. But I note that the people who did are definitely really well benefited from that experience. And especially, as you're saying, with this age of information, which is so exciting, being able to articulate something in the most concise manner is so powerful, because it's not just about what you know, it's about how you can convey it. And so being able to distill information quickly is such a valuable skill and translates to pretty much any field, and is a lifelong skill that you'll have and continue to develop as well. And it's really exciting for me because I know you're at the start-ish of your career.
For sure.
You're already CFO of a chocolate company, which
Shout
is
out to Sinless Treats Chocolate.
a fun thing. And so tell me more about the chocolate business and your career in terms of education and then getting into the chocolate business. Do you classify yourself as a Willy Wonka-esque character?
No, 100%.
How has this chocolate business come about in general? I mean, that's such a random thing.
So random. And no, funny enough, I actually have like a purple suit that I wear when I sell. It's awesome. It's awesome. And maybe one day I'll get like the hat as well.
Yeah.
But to kind of explore my education. So my entire life, I was an aspiring orthopedic surgeon. And
Wow.
that's like,
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by the life sciences. And that's like, obviously also given the fact that I come from a Asian immigrant family, like, of course, that was like one of the, the routes that one could take. And, really this idea of divulging from this status quo that was set before me happened when I was young. I started a couple businesses. So one day, basically, a buddy of mine calls me over. I'm like 16 years old and he's a bit older than me. He calls me and says, "Hey, Andrew, can you come help me with my house?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Why not? I'm not doing anything better." So dude, we're resurfacing the walls, we're installing things, we're painting stuff. Like by the end of the day, I mean, I'm covered in paint and plaster. And I looked at him and I was like, "Hey, did you have fun?" And he was like, "Yeah, I did." And I was like, "You want to start a business out of this?" And I was like, "Yeah." So like enter a renovation business that I was running at 16, 15, something like that, where I was making deals with both commercial and residential real estate owners. And it was interesting to me. This was like what I like to think of as like the first drop of blood that the bloodhound got, because like, I mean, imagine like, dude, you're like 15, 16 years old. You're making on average like $50 an hour. It's in cash, whatever that means. I don't know. I gotta pick who I gotta work with, where I worked, and what I did, and that really set something in my heart. I was like, "Whoa, this is insane! Like I can actually do this." In that same chapter of life, one of my cousins immigrated from Dubai, and when he got here, they didn't have the money to send him to a barber shop, and they lived with us. I mean, we had like 14 people living at the house at one time. It was awesome. They made me cut his hair. Like they found my dad's old clipper set and they're like, "You're going to do this for your cousin." And I was like, "I don't know how to do this," and kept doing it. And I messed him up several times. And my other friends who were so gracious to allow me to try. And that turned into a barber business. And then the last thing is, in the pursuit of becoming an orthopedic surgeon, I found this program that I could go to, which allowed me to graduate from high school in 2 years and go straight in residence at the University of North Texas. So this program was called TAMS, or it still is around. And if you have any younger cousins, siblings, bro, happy to connect them. And it's a great program. And during this time, I mean, these two things are happening. I get elected in the STEM-focused program as the business organization executive. And I was like, "All right, God, like, what do you want to do with me?" And I was like, "Jesus, like, show me the way." Ended up going to McCombs. I got accepted there. Credits transferred. I was like, "This is a top 5 business program. Gonna have to do it." And then this is kind of like the interplay between the chocolate company now. So it's like, dude, going to a top 5 business program, it's very, very evident that they want you to do two things. Either one, you're going to be a Wall Street investment banker so that they can say, McCombs for Wall Street or whatever that means. And then the other option you have is a top 4 consultant. And no disrespect, no, whatever, if that's what works for you. But this was my personal experience. I'd go to the networking events and I'd meet the guys. And don't get me wrong, bro, they had the watch, they had the suits, they had the nice shoes, they had what the world deemed as successful. But when I would talk to them, it was always like, "Are are you there, bro? Hi, you know? And I started journeying more. I was like, maybe I need to really actually dial in on this entrepreneurship thing. Maybe it's not just like a side hustle. Maybe this is something I actually do. And I discovered there's this idea of like venture capitalists, like that investors that support entrepreneurs. And so then I started going like, shout out to the Capital Factory. I started going to Capital Factory events and I'm like, whoa, everyone in here is really weird and I'm weird and this is awesome. And like you talk to everybody and it's like, what are you working on? It's like, yeah, I'm going to change the world and this is how I'm going to do it. And it's incredible. And so, this led me into, the world of venture capital and entrepreneurship as a whole. And so all of this to, finally get around to the answer, last South by Southwest here in Austin, I got invited to be a panelist at one of the networking events, and in the crowd was Dr. Lerman, who's the CEO and co-founder of Sinless Chocolate, and she was in the crowd. She asked me a bunch of questions as a panelist, came up to me, gave me her card. I tried the chocolate, and just being a dummy, I forgot to follow up with her. But I like to always think of it as like, bro, God always has a plan. And bro, a month later, and this is divine timing, a month later, her former VP of sales reached out to me and was like, hey, we were talking. We really enjoyed your energy, your excitement, whatever. Would love to chat with you about our business model. Again, divine timing. Happened to be in Houston that week. I was like, you know what? I'll come by. I'll stop. I'll see where you guys manufacture the chocolate, taste it, understand the story. And after conversating with Dr. Lerman, I realized very quickly, I've never seen a better founder problem fit. There's a clear product market fit because there's a rising number of consumers who actually care about metabolic health and putting great things into their body. It's just a sales and distribution problem, and I think I can help with that. And so she offered me a CFO role, and I was like, yo, this is crazy. Yes, I'll do it. And then I realized very, very quickly, and this isn't the question necessarily, but this is kind of the explanation to HeyBuddy. I realized very quickly in the CPG space, especially people who are selling products that are around health and wellness, there's a lot of conversation that takes place for you as a consumer, I as a consumer, to feel confident. But when 99% of businesses are now on e-commerce, how do we translate that? How do we get the Michael and the Andrew in front of consumers? We can't do that. I can't have 1,000 conversations at once if 1,000 people visit my website. And so I thought to myself, well, how do I solve this problem for my own business and for other founders? Sidebar here. Everything I do, because I believe, bro, it's so cool to like pursue your own dreams and like do it and get it. Like that's awesome. But to me, the more honorable thing is to empower the success of other people around you and to make that part of your definition of success. So I was like, how do I empower the success of CPG founders across the world? Introducing HeyBuddy, an AI agent that seamlessly integrates into your CPG website and turns every question into a confident customer. So you can think of Buddy as your online virtual shopkeeper. And that's kind of the story of how I got exactly where I am right now in this moment.
That's awesome. And so are you still working at the CFO position?
Yeah.
And do you intend to go full time on HeyBuddy in the future? And what's
absolutely.
that shift and what point are you making that leap?
Yeah. So, I mean, the easy answer is like follow the dollar, but no, I think for me, it's, and this is how I feel about education. This is how I feel about jobs. This is how I feel about strategic networking. It's like, what is my mission in this lifetime? Because I have a limited gap on this world, right? Like I'm only going to, God willing, maybe 85 plus, but maybe not. So what do I do? What's my mission? And I'll follow the mission. Whatever role I see, again, if my definition of success is empowering the success of other founders, then it will be where can I place myself and what position to do that on scale? And so that's kind of my elaborate abstract answer to the question. It's if HeyBuddy is what that does, then sure. But I could also see it as like, if I can grow Sinless chocolate and founders like you and I are eating the best chocolate in the world that's good for them, and that mental acuity or that lack of a crash or the lack of metabolic disease, which affects well over 75 to 90% of Americans, well, not metabolic disease, but metabolically being unfit, that's also a way to engage in my mission. So I know that's not a direct answer, but that's kind of how I calculate my next move.
My biggest concern with chocolate is not the metabolic effects, but heavy metals.
Of course.
And so you say Sinless Street chocolates?
Sinless treats.
Sinless treats.
Yeah.
Do you guys test for heavy metals?
All the time. We use it's single origin cacao from a farm that uses regenerative farming in Ecuador, and that is something that we are just so dialed in on, because even the best companies and out there, I guess like Hughes, like the example when people think of healthy chocolate, in the consumer report that was released in 2023, 2024, all of the top consumer brands that you probably are aware of and you see at H-E-B and Whole Foods, high in heavy metals. And
Yeah, you can't find chocolate that's tested for heavy metals in stores, really.
Shop.
I've looked, I've tried, and because chocolate's so healthy, really the great dark chocolate's very healthy.
Yeah.
But heavy metals is in most of the consumer brands.
Well, look no further, www.sinlesstreetschocolate.com.
Yeah, it sounds
made in
great.
the heart of Houston, Texas.
Well, it sounds like a great gift as well for my parents, so I'll definitely have to check it out. I haven't looked at the website yet, but
dude, check it out.
Obviously, it seems awesome. The chocolate industry is just, it's interesting that it's become sort of a piece of culture with Mr. Beast and the Feastables as well. He feels definitely like the Willy Wonka and sort of what he's trying to be in some sense to me. How has that impacted anything at all?
Well, the way I look at it is like, I was actually recently watching the video of him and Keith Lee, the food reviewer.
Okay,
yeah, it's going viral. Where basically Keith Lee hops on with Mr. Beast and he's like trying out, Feastable chocolate, and like it's going viral because like you can visibly see like he's losing his shit on camera because Keith Lee's not like liking his product. And it's really interesting is like I was paying attention to his dialogue, and he continuously reinforces the idea like, I need you to compare this to Hershey's chocolate. And one fun fact is like Hershey itself doesn't even consider their product as chocolate. It's called chocolate product. And so what does that mean to me? How does that affect the way I view it? Well, I recognize that there are two segmentations of the market. There are individuals that chocolate product, chocolate, sweet, I want it. That's not what we're after. And the other thing too is like, and this is how I think about it 5-10 years down the road in this business model, is like economies of scale so that we can be the everyday chocolate, but bringing a new standard where we are healthy Hershey's. Now, of course, as a company, we're not there yet. We will. And hopefully our impact in the ecosystem, whether it's us or another, it's to solve that problem. How can we be as easily accessible and affordable as chocolate or Mr. Beast Feastable, but actually be real to the Mayan traditions of cacao and all of the health benefits that individuals like me and you eat it for?
Well, you're probably never going to beat them on cost, and it's definitely, you never want to compete on cost. And it's one of the concerns of definitely the wider AI industry as well. With everyone, with ChatGPT 5 specifically now being reduced costs, and there's all these concerns about AI becoming a commodity. But with chocolate in general, and well, just e-commerce, are you guys selling online? And what has your social media campaigns been like? Because I run a small boutique social media agency.
Cool.
And we're always looking for new ways to produce content, how to make better content. And that really has come down to immense amounts of content research, just finding niche audiences and what works well for certain audiences, and not trying to reinvent the wheel at all, and just find things that do well and just remake it with like a little bit of touch of the brand, the brand's essence put into it. Have you guys found success in one particular part of social media in marketing? Where have you guys used influencers? What's your main way to sell product?
Yeah, so first and foremost, absolutely. I would say like our business is split 80-20, like 20% happening in shop. We do have a storefront in Bel Air, like Houston, Texas. So we have people that stop by and recurringly, buy product, but truly our focus is e-commerce. That being said, I'll be the first to admit, like, I don't believe we're wildly successful in our marketing and advertising. I don't. I just genuinely don't believe that. And I think that I'm more than happy to chat off camera for sure, bro. Like if you're the solution, that would be awesome. But as far as like the bouts of success that we have experienced in marketing our company, one of the things that we want to do as a brand and as a company is create community. I've come to realize, especially when it comes to consumable goods, we trust the people around us the most. Like, yeah, you can have an influencer like Keith Lee, and it does wonders for sure. And that's what we're working on right now, is to get, the master metabolics of the world, the Dave Aspreys of the world. Like, we want that for sure. But the biggest thing is, and I think this is a focus that I really want to dial in on, is how do we incentivize consumers to tell their friends? How can I, if I wasn't, affiliated with the company and I tried it, how could I get you to try it? And that's the thing I'm trying to figure out right now. And that could come from a content perspective. Because, I mean, the funny thing is like, people send content to each other. So you're advertising on behalf of these corporations already, unpaid, without any sort of agency of doing so. So if that's the $1 million question you want to help me answer, that'd be awesome. Like, what do I got to do as a company to put content out there or put resources out there that people would want to share? Now, we do that through our podcast. We do that through the resources online. And ultimately, we do that with Dr. Lerman's expertise on metabolic health. So that comes down to family members being able to recommend to their, for example, if your parents they're pre-diabetic, they're diabetic, you're going to feel inclined to do so. Now, how do we do that at scale?
Yeah, it's interesting, the metabolic health piece, because to me, the main problem with chocolate is the heavy metals, like I was saying. And do you know who Brian Johnson is?
Of course.
He would be a great advocate for the product, but he has his own brand.
So
he sells chocolate, I believe. That's his main selling point, is the heavy metal testing on the chocolate, because he recognizes this is a big problem, and it is. It's a huge problem. All the chocolates in stores have heavy metals in them.
Heavy metals.
And no one really realizes it unless you're in the health world. Most people see chocolate as a relatively healthy thing who are health professionals, but they can't tell people to go buy chocolate because it has heavy metals. And
right.
They have to spend a lot of money buying a chocolate that doesn't have the heavy metals. But oddly, in my mind, I'm thinking like you guys can make a supplement out of this if it's really like metabolically reducing blood sugar for people who are doing different types of diets because of the blood sugar benefits. When people eat certain foods, their blood sugar spikes and it makes them become more hungry. And it's all about really controlling blood sugar levels when you want to help reduce cravings.
100%.
And so it's almost like a weight loss product in a way if you're advertising the metabolic benefits and how it will keep your blood sugar levels down. Yeah. Have you guys considered any of those potential avenues?
For sure. I mean, one thing you got to note is like you got to be kind of careful about language.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if you claim it to be a supplement. So that's like one thing, great idea. The other thing too, and I think what you're like inspiring me to share is like, that kind of is like the spirit behind Sinless Streets chocolate, right? Like every diet plan so far is always like something along the spirit of like, bad, take away, no more. Right? Our whole point is like, no. We want to do the opposite as a food manufacturing, a food technology company, is how do we generate and create products that you can actually add, that you don't have to feel bad or you can feel sinless having, right?
Yeah.
And I love that idea of like, why don't we continue to supplement these products within somebody's diet to further them in their goals and help them succeed in that? So it's a fantastic idea. And hey man, if we end up signing with your agency, that's a campaign we could launch. Like,
yeah,
and nobody's heard of. You want to know the best supplement for you? Chocolate. Like I've never heard of that. Like that'd be awesome. So happy to explore that creative idea.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with the health scene other than both my parents being doctors, but
nice.
I do know chocolate is a good thing.
It's a
and
great
the
thing.
only reason really why I don't eat it daily is because it's expensive
Very
to not
expensive.
to get good chocolate. It's very expensive.
Yes.
But you'd only want to eat good chocolate if you're going to eat chocolate. I'm not sure. It's a very unique food like that because it tastes great.
Incredible.
And it's one of those foods, maybe it's akin to salt back like in the old days when salt was really expensive and it's hard to get your hands on. But it's an electrolyte. It helps you retain water. It makes food taste better. But for the people who didn't have a lot of money, it was hard to get their hands on. But people like Brian Johnson, including it in his blueprint meal plans, basically underscores the importance of it in a healthy diet.
Yeah.
So it's how do people how can you include it potentially into diet? Boost energy. I'm not sure on the whole health benefits of it, but it definitely does boost energy without many downsides, and
Absolutely.
it tastes amazing.
Win-win.
It's a win-win. I love chocolate. What's your guys' take on additives like caramel and including salt, nuts on chocolate? Have you guys done any of that?
Yeah, so we've got a number of
Caramel
flavors.
might not fit
No,
the
they
vibe.
we have some that do have caramel, but we make it ourselves, right? Because everything that we have has no artificial flavor. We use no sugar in all of our products, and so how we think about it, A1 if we made it and we approve of the standard
cool.
and the quality of it, but that's the difficult challenge, is like creating all that extra stuff. And then when we think about it from an operational perspective, I think it's really easy to enter the realm of scope creep, where you start going away from your core product. Like, to give you an example, right? So just a few weeks ago, we got deemed as second place in the International Chocolate Salon competition. So we competed against 360 different chocolatiers across the world. I mean, we're talking the Swiss people, the Belgian people, the people in Dubai. Like, I mean, and here's the kicker. They're all competing using sugar. And our milk chocolate was able to place second place. So it's like a question of, do we dial in on creating extra stuff, or do we really just focus on, quite literally, what's been proven, some of the world's finest chocolate? Yeah, so that's kind of how I think about it as an executive of the company. So,
and how many people are there
as far as staff?
Yeah.
Oh man, we're a small company. We run a lean, clean startup machine, is the way I like to think about it. I would say, including our chocolatiers, we're sitting at about like in between 5 to 10.
Yeah, it's still a pretty good size though. And in terms of just having a community to build something with, it's like if it was just 3 of you guys, it's a little bit small. But what do you feel have been the biggest lessons from working with a small team like that? Me personally, I was working at a short-term rental startup for a while.
Nice.
We had 10 to 15 people at our max, in that range, and I decided to move on to build Maiden, which is this SaaS product that helps people research social media as well as create designs. But working for this company really didn't particularly make me learn how to run a great startup. Okay. It more made me learn what not to do.
Beautiful education.
But it also was a great learning experience that, like, working at a great startup maybe would have made me learn more in terms of sped up my growth, but also I would never have ventured off into so many different tangents if I was fully occupied. There's ways in which you have to be so dedicated to make a great startup, and where I was working was very lax, and it was a very lax environment. No bueno. Which is not conducive to long-term success.
No.
And so with Sinless Treats
yeah.
chocolate, what have you gained from working with the team, and where do you see your growth in the next year really elevating? Like, where are you gaining market share? Are you just focused on Texas right now, or is this national?
It's national. But to answer your question, I want to reflect upon both modalities of being that I have to exist in with HeyBuddy and with Sinless Treats Chocolate. So just for clarification, HeyBuddy is me, my best friend, my brother, my ride or die. Shout out to Christopher Gale, who's my incredible CTO. We've got one product intern, and we're onboarding a marketing/business development intern. So to me, that's even smaller than like Sinless Treats Chocolate as far as like a number of people. So one, I'd like to reflect on HeyBuddy here. It's really interesting because if you're talking about a small business, and especially the one that you created, and most of the time, I mean, I haven't created anything novel. Starting a business with your best friend, everybody goes through this arc, right? One thing I've noticed is like personal life and professional life start to bleed into one another. Because before we started HeyBuddy, Chris was my best friend, and we would talk about life, and we'd talk about everything in between. And now we talk about life, but everything in between is what we work on together, which then bleeds, right? Because it's like, then there's two thoughts I have. Like, one, it's a bad thing because it's like, man, like we won't be sitting around yapping anymore. It's always like, okay, bring it back to the business. And this is not a conscious thought. It's a subconscious thought. We're passionate.
You wanna
This is our
talk about
dream. Now, here's the upside. The upside is this. The highest form of love is consideration. And every human, regardless of your race, your gender, your socioeconomic status, you want three things to feel loved. You want to be seen, first and foremost. You want to be heard. And then as a result of what people see from you and they hear from you and experience, you want to be loved. And so it's really nice. Here's the pro side of like doing this, being married to somebody in business. It's like he actually understands what I'm going through. Like when I feel, and I don't identify with this language at all, but when I feel quote unquote anxious or stressed or down, whatever that means, he understands exactly why. And when I tell him, hey bro, I've been talking to 100 people this week. I want some isolation. Okay, I get it. I'm here with you. So that's really nice. Like you literally have a brother in war that knows exactly what you're going through. And that's an incredible feeling. Now, to then reflect upon my role here on the left, I think one of the biggest challenges or emotional gaps that you need to fill as an entrepreneur, especially as a leader of a business, is like there are individuals that now not rely on you, but greatly benefit from the success of your output. So for example, one of the interns we hired this summer is one of my great friends, Isaiah Jamel. Because I entered this role, because I grew the company, he was able to have a summer internship. And the quality of his internship on his quote unquote resume, or this game of, packing your stats or whatever, is directly correlated to the success of the company. If Sinless Trees becomes the top #1 distributor of metabolically healthy chocolate, that's a fantastic thing for my brother here on his resume. He worked there and he contributed to that. So there is, again, I'm not going to use the word stress, but there is a level of importance when you have a bigger team. And that can either be a really stressful thing to you, but it's really, it opened my eyes on like, wow, this game of entrepreneurship and leading a company goes well beyond creating money for the company. This is what it means to create value to stakeholders. That's what it really opened my eyes to. And like the level of change that we can bring forth through our organizations.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting piece where to make money, you definitely have to make money for other people. And I think it's a hard trade-off in some ways. It's like it's obvious, but there's obviously a moment where you do have to cut a pie for yourself in some degree.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of how you do that. And that's like one of the big lessons I learned from early startup days, that it can't just be doing something for someone else. Like there has to be value for me in it.
For sure.
And my time needs to have value.
It has to.
And so framing work around that, if I'm losing money on what I'm doing, it's not worth doing at all. And so at the start, I started doing things like that. And maybe that did work for me to some degree. But I had to fail a lot to be able to get anywhere semi-successful.
Of course.
And it's always interesting listening to entrepreneurs like Alex Hormozy who talk about failure resumes and how many times he failed before he started anything somewhat decent. Do you feel like you have a failure resume?
Of course. Let's pull up my romance life. No, but definitely. I mean, I think and again, these terms are so arbitrary, but quote unquote a serial entrepreneur, there's so many ideas I've tried that just didn't work for a number of reasons. Like, and this is like a huge lesson that I learned too, is especially like, there's so many thoughts I have on this topic, but one, I think inevitably, if we're thinking about from the lens of statistical probability, like if failure is a intrinsic part of the entrepreneurial journey or a part of or a pit stop to success, then you need to keep traveling and you need to fail. You need to experience those stops. But the second thing also, and when you think of the failure resume, I think about my It's actually so funny, dude. I launched a herbal cigarette company in college, and it was so crazy.
Yeah.
This is the crazy thing. UT actually wrote a check into the business. Like, it was so crazy. But ultimately, I came down to realize, like, my purpose as a spiritual being on this planet is to better humans. And so my heart wasn't in it. Of course, it was like a smoking cessation company. Like, that's what the focus was. But it was really hard when non-smokers would come to me and be like, so should I smoke this? And I'm like, no. Like, burning anything is carcinogenic in your lungs, right? So, but what happened was, as a byproduct, that lack of commitment to it, it really, it pushed one of my good friends that was working with me and Chris at the time away from working with us, because he was like, dude, I'm putting in everything to make, because he's a creative genius, and you like the branding, the logo, everything was just so spot on. It was an awesome brand. He's like, now all of a sudden y'all want to decide, like, you don't want to do this anymore. Like, what the heck, right? And so I think part of that failure resume is like reconciling, bro, if you're going to fail, make sure you pick the right people to fail with. And if you pick the wrong people, ensure that you do it gracefully. And so absolutely, failure resume is fat. It's long. I've got, multiple bullet points of how I failed and lost a lot of money. Other notable fails, a lot of car deals that just didn't go through the right way. I've sold motorcycles in the past, lost a good amount of money there too. I invested like $10K into a trucking and logistics business. A crazy story. Failed, right? Yeah. One of my business partners got into like some crazy legal trouble. The trucks got seized, like whole 9 yards of failure. I've experienced it. And I believe inevitably, again, there's more failure to come. And I embrace that.
Yeah. The important piece is recognizing the failure. So I've so many times I've failed in terms of, I think my biggest failure is probably attempting to launch a crypto validator for the Provenance network. And it worked, but the way that I built it was in accordance to their documentation online. But the documentation was wrong. It was not up to date with how people were building at the time. So I spent too much money on AWS server fees to get this thing just to run.
That's awesome.
Only to have it be completely incorrect because of the fact that I just built it according to the documents online, which themselves were incorrect. So I didn't have a mentor in building it. I just was like, I looked up the documents and I was like, I'm going to build it from the documents without getting someone in the industry to help me do that. And so it was a huge fail. It didn't work at all. It was just lost money. It's not something I kept doing. I feel like I learned the lesson of having to find a mentor, of having to find someone who's done something similar in the related industry to learn from, and really talking to people in the industry before building something, which is something I've really taken to heart with Maiden, and meeting a lot of different people across different industries and design, real estate, and really trying to get their feedback on what makes great design products, and not even telling them what the idea is, just hearing their voice and what they're experiencing. Because if I tell them about my idea, usually people are like, that's great. And
awesome. So you're going to be the next,
they're not saying I'm going to be the next anybody. They're just agreeing because they don't necessarily, you don't want to put someone down all the time. You don't want to tell them if their idea sucks. You would be like, okay, like I'll do that too. I hear idea. I may not think it's that good, but like, I'm not going to tell this person your idea sucks. What do I know? Like, make it to put it in the market, see if people will pay for it. People who have been wildly successful often are thought of as their idea sucked before they actually put it into being. You look at Raising Cane's and their CEO. He got a C on his essay before he started Raising Cane's, but he got a C on his essay in college. He went to Alaska, did some Alaska fishing thing, made $50K, put it all into a business, everything into it, and now it's Raising Cane's, multi-billion-dollar company, and the guy owns 90%.
Wow.
Like, who knows anything about anything? So I'm not going to tell someone if their idea sucks, but I expect that of the people that I'm interviewing, which is why I don't tell them the idea at first, just to hear their feedback.
Sure.
But the lesson of even asking people of getting the feedback kind of came from the Providence Validator Nodes shenanigans. But that lesson would never have been learned if I didn't see that as a failure, which it so obviously was. And there's other failures that I've had too, in terms of just life. I think of my time with this short-term rental company called Revity. It's a failure that they weren't a multi-million-dollar company because I was a part of it, right? It's a failure on my resume that we didn't sell for what we thought we were going to sell for, and we did well for 1 year, then didn't do so well. And it's like, there was so many problems with the company that's like obviously not all on me, and it's actually not a terrible company. Like they're still around today, but they're never going to be the $500 million company that I once thought and believed they were going to be. And a lot of the failures are just from believing things that weren't true.
Yeah, 100%.
And you just got to test it. But recognizing the failure and admitting it. Because there's so many people who won't even recognize their failures.
Sure.
And
this happened, that happened. Da, da, da.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess question for you to explore that idea, right? So we're talking about the resume of failures and all that good stuff. You're obviously still in the entrepreneurial game. What is the source of your resilience? Like, why did you get back to it? Why not fold and be like, all right, I'm a failure. Let's keep it pushing. I'll sign me up for the W-2, whatever that looks like, right? Like,
yeah, I've had a lot of opportunities to do that. While I was working for Revity, I had this company offer me a $300,000 job to do data analytics for them, which is a lot of money.
Lots of money.
And that, like, they didn't really formally offer that.
But it was no.
But it was like, if I left Revity at the time, I would have made a lot more money than I was making, but I wouldn't have done anything entrepreneurial. And that was, at the time I was really branching off and being more of an entrepreneurial person. I didn't want to work for someone else, necessarily be an ant, a part of the colony, but there's a lot of benefits to that. And
absolutely,
I don't think there's one path to success.
No.
My direction following college, I shared a lot of my story at the open source
That's
Austin.
awesome. Thank you.
But after college, I really felt like I had to redefine myself and really find a path forward. Both my parents are entrepreneurial in the sense that they have their own clinic in Oregon where they practice medicine out of their clinic. But some doctors will work at a clinic, for example, then just be a doctor at the clinic. They actually own the clinic, and so in that way they are entrepreneurial. But for me, it was just all about self-improvement, and I didn't ever really think to be an entrepreneur exactly. I was just about how can I be a better person of myself tomorrow and be a happier person and live up more to my potential. And then through that, it's been more of a progressive journey of how do I continuously get better every day and what can I do to be the best person that I can be. And that has led through many, many iterations of myself. I think about gaining XP of every lesson I learn is like gaining XP. Man. And that's part of the reason why I've named this podcast Limitless Levels, is because there's every time you level up, there's always infinite levels above you that you could hit.
Of course. It's
like you're always leveling up. And when I look back, it's like I've leveled up so much from where I used to be even 3 months ago. But sitting here today, I see all the ways that I can still be a superior entrepreneur, a superior leader in my community. And I aspire to be that. And it's odd, but I definitely take note of something that Jordan Peterson said in some video that I saw a long time ago, where the real purpose of like life is to reduce the net suffering of society.
Yes.
And it's like through that there is happiness. And I have found myself enjoying, like, as a collective month, like I don't think it's really great to look at day by day happiness, because some days it's a variable equation.
Yeah.
But like if you look at over longer periods of time, definitely my enjoyment of life has gone up over time. And there's another thing that I'm a big fan of Alex Hormozy. Granted,
Me too.
Some of the things that like I don't know if he's actually great for society, but he's great for me.
That's
Like,
a good disclaimer.
he probably makes too many people try entrepreneurship and try and like forever. Like some people just won't win. Which maybe some people may disagree with, but like that's part, like some people you have to work so hard to make it work, where it's like if you think you're doing great and you're going to quit everything and then you work 7 hours a day and you're like, okay, like that's probably not going to work out. You got to work extremely hard. The best entrepreneurs, Elon Musk is like 100% signal. He's probably like in his peak years, I think it's noted that he's worked like 18-hour days for like months. It's not necessarily fun. So it's very challenging, and a lot of people just can't do that. And people like Alex Hormozy probably push people to
more caffeine, more nicotine.
Yeah.
Get on it.
There are some folk that it's not really their thing. They just want the outcome. They just want to have the money. They just want to have a nice car.
Yeah.
They don't really see it. LeBron James talks about this as a love for the game.
Absolutely.
Like he plays for the love for the game. He doesn't play necessarily for the next. Like he wants to win. He wants to get the championship. That's the goal. But he keeps playing because of a love of the game, and you have to love the game. And it's definitely something that I have started, like I now really appreciate, is just playing. Like the goal is to work hard and to solve great problems to help a lot of people. And at the end of the day, I hope that translates to big successes where I have completed that task and where I have helped a lot of people. But what keeps me motivated is just trying to have a great day the next day. Like I want to have the best day that I've ever had the next day. And so I think about like, I write a journal every day. Beautiful. And so in my journal, I'll put the happiness, like I keep various metrics at the top. And one of them is like a happiness metric, which is purely qualitative. It has no real definition of like, there's no real quantitative measurement of it. But I try and just replicate my favorite days. And consistently, some of my favorite days are the days where I feel like I've just put everything in to solving the problems that I'm solving. And so I try and keep doing that and improving myself. And I feel like every month I feel like a better person. And the thoughts that I have are improved in the sense of like in my internal dialogue. I used to have a very negative internal dialogue, which I've really focused on changing, but it's very difficult to do. And so now like I think about like how I was a year ago. It's like I was working very hard a year ago. I was trying very hard a year ago. And it's like I was on the journey, but like it's just a matter of doing what you like doing. And I tell people, what do you want to end up doing? It's like, I just want to do what I want to do. Like I want freedom. I want to be able to do what I want to do whenever I want to do it, anytime, anywhere in the world. And I see that as like part of what I'm doing right now. Like I'm already living my dream.
Absolutely.
And so there's things I would obviously like to be different. Mm-hmm. There's things that I'd like to change. I'm single right now. I wish I don't necessarily wish I had a girlfriend. It'd be nice. I'd like to be like have a family, be married. That's like a version of myself that I'd like to see in the future. But it's not a thing that necessarily, I'm not sad about being single. It's like it's not necessarily even a priority at all. It's not a priority for me, but it would be a nice thing.
For sure.
The ultimate focus is success in terms of business success and being able to make great product. That's for me the number one thing that I'm focused on. And there is a big concept that you have to win everywhere. You can't just win in one place. And I do subscribe to that. And so for me, it's how do I not just win at working hard, because there's more to winning than one. It's not a one equation problem. Success is not a one equation thing. There's a gajillion variables, and you can win many different ways. And it's about playing the cards that you have, but then also in playing the cards, there's different ways to play them. And ultimately, you got to win everywhere. Winners don't just win one place. LeBron James, he's like the go-to basketball. He's a great dad. He has a great family. He like travels the world. He gets to hang out with cool people. I'm sure he has a fun time. Like, I don't think he's always working. Like, he has some things that he does for fun, but like in the early, like, he still has a crazy work ethic. Everyone, like, he just does what he likes doing. Something that I do think about also with success is, where does reflection come into play? Now, this is a totally different concept. Maybe you should respond to what I just said, and then we can go into this next thing.
Right on.
Yeah.
So it's a lot to respond to. Thank you. First and foremost, to kind of reply to your ideas of failure. I think it sounds so cliche, but it's like, bro, if you learn, you can't lose. So you have to differentiate as an entrepreneur. There's a difference between failure and believing that failure equals lost time, lost capital. It's like, no. That's what I tell, especially younger entrepreneurs that reach out to me, like, bro, I have this business idea. I've got like $5,000 saved. I'm scared to explore it. And I'm like, listen, bro, put in everything, lose the 5K. And whenever the bill comes back, you say, that's education. That was my tuition bill. Everything that you learned in failing at those two companies, it's like, I mean, you were going to pay UT $30,000 to teach you about business. You just paid 5K and now you're feeling bad about it. What? Nah, you didn't lose. You learned. So we can't lose. You know what I'm saying? Because we stay learning. The second thing is, you kind of talked about this idea of not everybody's supposed to be an entrepreneur. And it's like, I agree. Like, I think entrepreneurship is also a very beautiful thing. Like, if you found yourself an organization or a corporation that will fuel and funnel the things that you want to explore and learn and build, it's like, I mean, how's that different from VC money? You're going to an institution that's supporting your cause, and they're providing an infrastructure in which you can then develop that. It's the same thing. The third idea that you mentioned was about, working hard. I think that it's going to be really interesting how this sentiment evolves over time with AI, because in my brain, it's not a race to see who can put up the most amount of hours. It's how can I change the formula to where Andrew's 1 hour equals exponential output? Because before it was one-to-one correlation, especially when we think about ourselves in physically demanding, laborious task. If I spend 1 hour cutting the grass, that equals $30 to $50, depending on what neighborhood you're cutting at or how big or whatever, but it's no longer the case. And Naval Ravikant in the Almanac talks about this idea of like setting your wage to be very, very exponentially high, but in correlation, creating systems in which your value is actually exponential. The next thing you talked about was about happiness. I love this idea because I think in the Western world, there's this huge emphasis about do what makes you happy. And it's like, happiness is a fleeting emotion. You really want to strive for something that's temporal? I don't believe in that. I believe you should strive towards contentment. You've identified in your own entrepreneurial journey that satisfaction is how you view contentment. And I hope that you find contentment, if you haven't found it already, via satisfaction or via doing things that satisfy the upper echelons of what you've determined in your internal dialogue as success. That goes into the next topic where you said, my main point of contention here is like business success. And I want to challenge you here, brother to brother. If Chris comes up to me and says, we crushed it that week. And he's like, bro, I want to go take my girlfriend out, and I want to hang out for 4 to 5 hours of time. My response will, and this is how I'm going to lead my companies in the future too. It's like, you have kids and you want to go hang out with them, go do that thing. And this is why I think for me, like, what is the reason I work so freaking hard? Well, I'll tell you my dreams to the world, I guess. I want to be an incredible father, and I want to be an incredible husband. And I think in order to do so as a masculine figure or in the masculine prerogative, it is to provide. And one of the things I want to provide is not only my capital, but my presence. And so I believe in my definition of success, the family, the wife, the kids, taking care of my older parents who in the future will need me. That is part of success. So don't and my challenge to you is like,
redirect the totality of success in your mind. If you believe that that is a predecessor to reaching that end state of success, fine. I'm in the same boat. Let's go make millions of dollars. That way we don't have to clock in 60 hours. We can actually be at home with our kids. Like, that's an incredible thing. But recognize that when we think about our time, energy, and effort as capital, when we allocate it, there are other things. Like, for example, and this is a huge belief of mine. Why is it, and I bet you've met millions of guys like these, man, they're hyper successful in business. But you ask them, it's like, hey, bro, tell me about your wife. Which one? My third wife? My second marriage? Like, because we've redefined success as, bro, your business is everything. Like, no. In my life, I want my wife, I don't have one, I'm single too, brother. We in the same boat, literally. But I want her to be literally the most important thing in the world for me. And if that is, in my family, if that really is the important thing for me, then I have to make business decisions accordingly. How does this, me being over here in this conference in New York or SF, how does that benefit my family? Then I think and I think, bro, this is why I genuinely believe if you have a great woman or a great husband, right? This is what inspires men to be great. And Alex Hormozy talks about this all the time with Layla. It's like, it's this term he uses, it's force multiplier. Because if I start thinking, all I want to do is be with my kids and hang out with my kids, but I got all these service support tickets at HeyBuddy, well, then the solution is I need to automate that workflow so I can free up my time and be with my children. And so I think, like, in striving to success, it should be part of the formula. It should be part of the equation if that's something you desire. But those are my thoughts, because I do believe there's this hyperfixation. And then using your example as a proof, it's like, Elon ain't around his kids. I promise you, bro. Like, there's no way. There's literally no way. How could you be sleeping on the Tesla floor and you're also tucking your kid in and telling them goodnight? And if I could, if I could literally have a microphone like this to speak to all of mankind, this would be to the masculine. I would tell them, listen, your money's great. Like, my wife in the future, God willing, Jesus please, she'll be driving a Porsche with me. She'll have the Cayenne. We'll have matching colors. My Turbo S will be matching. All the things. But I think what's more valuable to my wife, my children, and my money is me. Because the greatest thing that we can give to each other is not money, it's our values. And it's interesting, we're talking about salt. In the gospel, like, Christ talks about, like, children, as he says, like, be fruitful and multiply and be the salt of the earth. Salt was used for two things, or it still is. One, the preservation of meat. And two, the beautification to bring flavor. That is our virtues and values as men. It's our whole prerogative in progeny and having children, having a family, is that we've created a place where our values can live, they can be proliferated through our children, and they can be the salt of the earth. Because that's the greatest gift we can give each other, is our values.
Yeah. It's interesting because when people talk about values, it's a question of, are your values really your values, or are they someone else's?
What is original thought? Do you believe it exists?
So with social media, a concern of mine is that we're all just it's like, how do you hack a human? It's like people are being hacked right now through social media. And so it's the values that people get aren't necessarily like the values that maybe they should have.
Agreed.
And so, but that could be true for everyone. And it's something that I definitely pay attention to myself. It's where the values that I have, are they really mine? And so one thing that I do believe is talking about, like, working all the time, having a family, work-life balance. Everything can work. I don't think there's nothing, there's no path that won't work, because there's infinite ways to win.
Yes.
So in that, anybody can have any situation that they want and still theoretically win. It's just a matter of doing what makes you happy. So, like, I don't necessarily define success as wealth at all. Yeah. I think you're kind of in that realm where, like, success to you is more than wealth.
Absolutely.
And I definitely believe that too. And I think most successful people also, like, they're like, most really successful people are like, oh, that's just a car, or like, oh, that's just whatever. Yeah. It's like, they don't necessarily see the wealth as, like, things that they really want. And those, like, then you have, like, the ultra wealthy, the kids of the wealthy people who then maybe are more materialistic, and these trust fund babies and whatnot. And those people are always interested that are super materialistic. But the vast majority of people who are very successful, some of them make it for the wrong reasons, but a lot of them are more just trying to make a big impact. What I'm trying to get to is I have this perspective that anybody can do anything. It's just a matter of making sure that it's what you want to be doing. So many people do things that they don't want to do.
Absolutely.
But there's, in that, you have to do stuff that you don't want to do the stuff that you want to do.
For sure.
Like,
Discipline is freedom.
yeah, hard work is hard, but to me, it's like every month I've been happier than I was the last month. So I'm going to keep doing what makes me the happiest and makes me want to aspire to be a better person, feel like I'm making progress and feeling like I have purpose, and I'm going to keep doing that. But for someone else, that definition for them might be totally different. Someone who's living in their parents' basement playing video games all day, I don't hold them any higher or lower than me. That's totally fine if that's the thing that feeds them, that gives them their purpose.
Yeah.
There's probably someone like that, and some people might be like, oh, that person's like the low light of society. It's like, no, they're just that's like that's great. They've won. And so it's a matter of just finding the game that you want to play, but anyone can win.
So philosophical question for you. This is something I've always, it's one of me and my boys will have yap sessions starting off this question. It's like, okay, let's assume that contentment or satisfaction or happiness, whatever term on this you want to use, is like the goal. With respect to that, is ambition a curse?
Well, I don't think contentment is the goal at all.
Because we've just previously defined the guy who sits in the basement playing video games won. What did he win?
Well, I think so. It's definitely a big conversation because there's so much into it. The enlightened folk of the world, I don't know if you know much about yoga or Sadhguru as a guy from India.
I'm Indian, by the way.
Yeah. I love Sadhguru. I've been to his ashram here in the U.S.
That's lit.
Meditated there for a while. And something that really stuck to me from reading some of his books too was that like he has to keep karma or like a purpose for him to stay alive in this world. Otherwise he'd just fizzle and die, because having no motivation, no goal is just like death. If you live the cycle over and over again, if you're content and don't want to achieve anything, you're basically that's death. You're not going anywhere. You're just in the ground, not moving. And so progress is life.
I agree.
And so that's also where the happiness is. But the progress is not there's different things you can progress towards.
Dude, and that's what makes the world that we live in so interesting. Because there's this like new trend now, or occurrence that's happening where humans are now replacing core parts of their life, like girlfriends and relationships, with AI. And it inspired this thought in my brain where I'm like, wait a second. They're existing in microcosms of reality, and there are arbitrary rules just like society. So for example, let's take the guy in the basement. He might be progressing at the number of skins he has on his Call of Duty weapons. And he might be super ambitious every day. And then if you think about it, like, bro, he's putting in the hours. He's putting in the 60 to 80 hours trying to be the best, gain the XP, the level points. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's very interesting to think about how there are microcosms of existence now that we've reached this level of survivorship. On the survivorship curve of society, we've gone to this level where, like, bro, you don't even gotta like hunt your food. You don't gotta worry about this. Like, click a button, DoorDash, it's there. So now what? Where does the brain go? It's interesting how you talked about this idea of like death or demise that's found in not doing. And I think that's the problem with hedonism. I think hedonic drive is a temporal drive that is hyperfixated on the now. I want to eat the chips. I want to do the XYZ thing. And purpose is, and I think, and it's so beautiful. I'm going to have to meditate on this a lot, actually. Thank you for inspiring this. It's like, purpose to me requires self-actualization on a time continuum in which we haven't reached yet. Meaning, I am building this company with the hopes that one day everything I'm doing will lead to a multi-million-dollar exit. But it doesn't exist yet. But yeah, I'm moving towards this, and I've actualized my own being, and relative to my own being, how do I move? So purpose is like not even just this idea of continuity via purpose is not even in the now. It's like what we're working towards. And I'm about to think about that because that's regenerative. That's restoring. That's beautiful. Thank you. Like,
Yeah. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. We've been already talking for over an hour.
no way.
That's why I have the clock up.
Oh, dude, that's crazy.
I want to end the podcast by knowing two things.
Okay.
The first is, what are you most excited about in the next year?
Okay.
And what would be advice that you'd give, not to yourself, but to other people who are just starting out in entrepreneurship?
So first and foremost, I am the most excited about building, scaling, and growing HeyBuddy to the highest level to empower the success of CPG founders across the world with my best friend, shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, Christopher Gale. And then as far as advice I have to any entrepreneur, it's this. I don't know what your spiritual background is or alignment, but this is what I truly believe. And I mean, the deepest core, this is where my like vigor and energy comes from. The things that we dream about are almost intrinsic to the things that we're good at. People like doing things that they're good at, and things that we're good at come natural in some sense. Of course, there's learned behaviors, but there are things that we're intrinsically good at. To me, dreams are, especially persistent dreams, probably because the best entrepreneurs, they tick at something. There's something that they want to solve, and that's the thing. It's like dreams to me are the unraveling of your divine purpose or your divine ordination. So everything contrary to that, feelings of anxiety, depression, self-doubt, whatever, insert whatever, does not come from who I believe has inspired us. I believe that my dreams come from God, and I believe anything contrary to that is not from him, because that's a diversion, that's a distraction. So my advice to any entrepreneur, recognize that entrepreneurship is a deeply spiritual game, especially if your heart's in the matter and you're truly a person that's trying to create and proliferate goodness in the world. Recognize it's a deeply spiritual game. Work on your spirit. And I'll conclude with this, as the Bible says, seek first the kingdom of God and all shall be given to you. But with that, I conclude my words. Brother, it's been a grand pleasure. I look forward to all the great things that we're going to do together, and I'm excited to see you grow and to take all of this platform and the success that you're getting and just to continue to inspire and empower people across the world.
Well, thanks so much, Andrew.
Absolutely.
It's been a pleasure.